Good morning and welcome to East Union Mennonite Church. I'm Katrina Miller. I'm the worship leader this morning. This morning's service is focused on Mennonite disaster service. We're going to start with announcements. There's a couple that I'm going to highlight that are also there's more details in the bulletin. If you are interested in becoming a member of East Union, there's going to be some sessions coming up, so chat with Joel Beachy if you are interested. The Kelowna Food Pantry Drive at East Union is during the month of February, so start stocking up or planning your grocery list and diapers and paper towels and all that. There's going to be a progressive meal coming up with the MYF. When we were sponsors, we did that, and it was phenomenal, so I'm a little bit jealous. Mennonite Women is being held February 4th. All women are invited to join there. Chow is coming up February 5th. And then in February on the 9th, Julia Bowler will be sharing with all adult Sunday school classes and the MYF. I have not been worship leader, I don't think, before. I should have said this as part of the opening, and I'm a little bit frazzled, so if I miss anything, just like wave at me, holler out. We chose to do respite for an infant that is teething and a potty training toddler that got picked up this morning at 8:30. So I am a little bit winging it and gonna do my best. Are there any announcements from the congregation?
This is Greg Yoder on behalf of Church Council. On Thursday evening, we had our annual business meeting. We do have a budget for 2025, which is great. In case you weren't present at the meeting, ended up that we had a $36,000 surplus at the end of this year, at the end of 2024. So that's definitely a praise. As a result of that, a couple things. Elders submitted to council, and council also approved it, that we are looking into the possibility of having a ministry coordinator position here at East Union. Additionally, if you or anybody else has any suggestions about some ways that we could look at spending some of that extra money, because we are obviously a nonprofit and not in the business of making money. So council has a meeting in another week and a half, and so we will take any suggestions under advisement. Feel free to say something to either myself or an elder or a church council member. Obviously, we'd appreciate as much input as possible, so definitely a praise. Thank you.
Hi, this is Elise. Me and my friend Celie, we decided to do a bake sale for the California fires February 4th at Hillcrest at the game. So if you guys want to come or bring, you can sign up to bring treats because we're kind of low on that. But yeah, it's for the California fires. So thank you.
This is Lisa Yoder. Heather, if you could lead us in happy birthday. Today's Dad's 84th birthday.
Okay, and then one final announcement is so we're focused on Mennonite Disaster Service today, and Mennonite Disaster Service has existed for 75 years. It was started 75 years ago in Kansas among a Sunday school class in a church, and it has grown in really meaningful, wild ways. And their annual celebration, it used to be called the all-unit meeting. I don't remember what the official wording is. This year it's really focused on that Building Hope for 75 Years theme, and it's being held in Kansas, in Wichita. So we're going to watch a quick video about that. Registration ends tomorrow. It is free registration. You have to pay for your lodging, but all meals and activities that are part of the thing are included. There's some special tours and things that have some additional fees, but registration for that closes tomorrow. And it's in Wichita, February 14th to the 15th. Okay, I'm going to lead us in the call to worship. We gather as many individuals, yet we are one body. We come from many places, yet we come to one place. We gather as God's many children, yet we are one church. We are one body in this place as God's church. Alleluia. And then join me in the prayer. God of unity, hear our prayers. God of unity, hear our prayers. Give ourselves to you and pray that our commitment will speak hope to all we need. God of unity, hear our prayers. We give ourselves to our world and pray that our service will make known your love to all we meet. Amen.
number 158, Gott ist die Liebe, or I Know God Loves Me, 158. I know God loves me with all my everything. I know God loves me for I am all. And so I sing again. I know God loves me. I know God loves me for I am all. No sin surrounds me. God love is stronger. No sin surrounds me. God loves me still. I know God loves me. I know God loves me. I know God loves me for I am all. God sent us Jesus, our faithful Savior. God sent us Jesus to set us free. And so I sing again of how God loves me. I know God loves me, for God is love. My Savior Jesus, you know my sorrow. My Savior Jesus, you give me love. And so I sing again of how God loves me. I know God loves me, for God is love. And next turn would be the 771. This song has two parts, and each part repeats. So we sing the top part, and then we sing it again, and then we sing the bottom part, and then we sing it again. It's a new song, so if you want to just listen the first time through, feel free to do that. Or you can join in right away. It's pretty straightforward and easy to say. We have been sent by God, with our hands prepared to serve, and we fill along with God, a family here on earth. We have been sent by God, with our hands prepared to serve, and we fill along with God, a family here on earth. The angels sign and send to change this world and day into a world of love, where peace and justice reign. Give full spiritual love to fill this world today. We seek to do your will, oh Lord, how we pray. The angels sign and send to change this world and day into a world of love, where peace and justice reign. Give full spiritual love to do this work today. We seek to do your will, oh Lord, that's how we pray.
Now is the time for gifts and offerings. There's a basket in the back where you can give in person. You can mail a check. Don't send your cash in. You can donate online, or there is a mobile app that you can give through. Jesus of love and leftovers, we struggle with what to share and how much is enough. Sometimes we are the disciples quietly suggesting you send the needy crowds away. Sometimes we are the crowds bringing only our desire to be close to you. When we have little, embolden us to share it. When we have nothing, welcome us to stay and eat. In giving and receiving, we participate in the miracle of enough. Amen. So as we focus on Mennonite Disaster Service, this service, I wanted to give a little bit of background on Mennonite Disaster Service. Up here on the slides, I'm not sure how legible it is. Respond, rebuild, and restore is not officially a motto, a slogan, or anything from MDS, but it is a very common phrase that we've been using. You'll find it on MDS t-shirts, on the website, on all sorts of things, because those three words kind of encompass the scope of what MDS focuses on. Below that is listed the mission statement, which is we respond to disasters, rebuild homes, and restore hope by organizing and empowering volunteers in the United States and Canada. I first served with MDS when I was 2 years old. My grandparents were down in Texas, and I went down with my parents. At that point, I was the only child, and we went down just for a week to join them while they were there for a couple months. And there's actually video of me, not OSHA approved, walking on the roof with my dad carrying his hammer. And so I have a pretty long family history of involvement with MDS, and then I served with MDS in college when I was having a little bit of a crisis and not just feeling very burned out from school. I took a semester off. This was in 2006, so a year after Hurricane Katrina, and I went down to Pass Christian, Mississippi, and was there from August to December that time, and went back several times in the next couple years to continue serving in that specific location. It was really handy to have the name Katrina because all the people in town, the gas station, the hardware store, remembered my name, but no one remembered my friend Lori. And then following my time volunteering with MDS with Hurricane Katrina, I then served on the MDS board of delegates and then directors, and now I'm no longer involved in the binational organization, but I am still on the Iowa unit board. So that brings me to the next slide, which kind of talks about the way MDS is set up. A lot of people get really confused because around here we end up having MDS responses that are very local, like in response to the tornadoes that the binational organization isn't involved in. But then when we talk about MDS often in churches and like behind the hammer, I guess magazine newsletter thing that gets put in our mailboxes, that's all from the binational organization. And so just as kind of an overview of how MDS is set up, it is meant to be primarily a grassroots organization. And so units are located in most states. Some states are big enough that they have multiple units within them. So we are under the Iowa unit. So if there is a tornado, if there's high winds, the local unit would start off by responding, going out and doing kind of observations to see what's going on and what emergency cleanup and response needs to happen. Most disasters that happen are not to the scale that turn into regional and binational organization responses. So like the tornadoes here, high winds a number of years ago, 2008 flooding, the local unit responded and kind of managed that. So they organize and operate independently, but then if there's something that happens here in Iowa that we at our local unit don't have the capacity to handle on our own, either the people that would normally be our volunteers are the people that were impacted by the disaster, and we just don't have the capacity beyond that initial cleanup to do a lot, then we'll often reach out to the region. And then the region is on this, they put green and blue together, so it's kind of actually hard to see the distinction, but we are part of the green states, so we're Region 3. We're called the Plains States section. And so we will often reach out to the region and they will end up supporting us. So they're kind of geographically aligned. And I failed to mention, the units are 100% volunteer. So when there's a response, it's entirely volunteers. There's no staff that are hired by the Iowa unit. At the regional level, there are 2 staff members that are hired by the binational organization that are assigned to each region. So for Region 3, we have a regional director or region operations coordinator, and that is Matt Miller, Troyer Miller. Yeah, Troyer Miller, which he used to be the pastor at Wood River Mennonite Church in Nebraska. He has come and preached here before, and now he works for MDS. He's good friends with Joel Beachy. He's my brother-in-law's brother. I think Emily babysat him maybe out in Shickley, Nebraska when he was growing up. So he is our Region 3 operations coordinator, and then we also have an office manager that does the secretarial side of things for him. So they are hired by the binational organization. When a disaster is either so widespread or so intense and such a big response is needed that there needs to be that long-term recovery response, the binational organization often gets involved. Or if there's not a local unit or much regional activity in the area, the binational organization will get pulled in. And so they have to have 4 things in place before they will start a binational response. And that is volunteers. They need to have both short-term and long-term volunteers, or leadership volunteers. So there's never a shortage of, well, I shouldn't say never. There's almost never a shortage of short-term people that can come for a week. But having enough leadership volunteers to be the office manager, to be the project director, the construction foreman, the crew leaders, all of those things, they have to feel like they have enough volunteer base to be able to support that. They have to have funding. They have to have meaningful work. And so meaningful work means that if it's a very affluent area, there will almost always be an MDS initial response of that initial cleanup. But MDS focuses on providing support and rebuilding and remodeling recovery work to areas and to families that are struggling. Either they're underinsured, uninsured, have other disabilities, or they're just other ways that they wouldn't be able to recover without volunteer support. And then the 4th thing is accommodations. So there also has to be, if it's going to be a more long-term response, there has to be accommodations that provides kitchen, bathing, housing, and there's set criteria of what the housing and lodging has to meet, that they would have to have in place before they could do that. And then the binational organization, it is staff coordinated. So the binational organization sets things up, gets things going, provides all of the background financial pieces to it. But when you are out on the project, once things are up and running, there might be staff there that are out there volunteering with you. Staff often take little sabbaticals or come out for a week to try it, to get an experience at the place. But the crew leaders, the project director, none of those are paid positions. So there is staff behind it, but on the project, it is entirely volunteer run, which is a pretty unique model among disaster recovery. On the next slide, you'll see, this you're definitely not going to be able to read super well, but I just wanted to kind of give a picture. This is pulled from the annual report. They'll be going over it in more detail in Wichita next month. But for 2023, 2024, MDS, and this is just the I didn't lump in the United States and Canada. That's a whole complicated thing. Canada's kind of Region 5, kind of its own thing. It used to be much more connected, but now because of tax reasons and financial whatever, they're officially a separate organization, but then they have a memorandum of understanding and they provide grants to each other back and forth, and very much still connected. But for the United States, for that fiscal year, they spent $12,467,000 and $296. So of that, 82% of that went to volunteer support, vehicles and equipment, project setup and volunteer lodging, client materials, and volunteer training. So often when you look at organizations, you look to see, is the money that we're giving going to the thing that we want to support, not just a bunch of staffing. And the difficulty with MDS is because the funding that comes in is primarily to support the volunteers so that there isn't a bunch of staff. It still looks like overhead unless you kind of separate it out like this. So only 18% is actually covering staff, their properties. They have properties in Lititz, Pennsylvania, in Columbus, Mississippi, and I forget the name of the town, but it's in Kansas. They just opened a cabinet shop. And then support activities and fundraising. So what's actually going into the work of recovery and rebuilding is 82% of funds that are given, is pretty directly. There's not a bunch that goes towards client materials because we primarily focus on partnering with, using whatever insurance they did get, partnering with other organizations like Red Cross, finding grants. Other organizations do the case management for MDS. During that year, there were 52,027 days of volunteer labor. 513 households were impacted and benefited from MDS support. That included 135 new construction homes, 287 repairs, 49 cleanups, and 9 new bridges. The bridges is a little bit unique. That's in West Virginia. There was a flood a number of years ago, and they've actually partnered with an engineering company that Ethan Gingrich, that grew up around here, he's my second cousin, he works for that organization. And so the homes themselves were damaged and they recovered pretty quickly, but for people to actually get to their homes, the bridges were out. And so they've been working on recovering and rebuilding bridges and the engineering that goes into that. This more detailed printout is probably going to be coming out in the next Behind the Hammer or with the Behind the Hammer, or you can always find it online if you want to dig into the numbers. And then the map is all the different places that they've been involved in the last year. The next slide, I just find it interesting. When we build a new construction home, we have set plans. And so there are 4 floor plans that you can choose from. And then, of course, there's the option to have it reversed or have the doorway moved to a different place. There's different options online. We have it engineered for whether it's on a concrete slab, whether it's up on pillars, whether it's on like a little half wall thing. I forget all the different details, but they have all of the plans pre-engineered and pre-set up so that there's a pretty set way that volunteers can learn the plans, learn how to lead the crews, and not have a ton of variation within them. So there's anything from a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom house to a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. Ways to volunteer. So there are a bunch of you out there that have volunteered with MDS. I have done weekly volunteer, leadership volunteer, and then I was one of the leadership volunteers during the summer youth program. One of the newer programs that has been really popular but has been really difficult for MDS to find appropriate locations for has been the family program. They've started to try to find places because of OSHA requirements. We're not an employer, so there's some options for that, but we try to still follow OSHA rules. And so to have families with children under 16 to be able to still have meaningful activities to do, they've been trying to find more and more opportunities for family programs, for families to serve together. Another one that isn't talked about in MDS stuff as much, but I know is very popular, and I'm pretty sure Dale and Linda did the RV program, right? Yes. I think it sounds really fun, but unfortunately it's only 55 plus, so I don't qualify quite yet. I actually don't know how firm they are on that, but the RV program is 4 days a week instead of 5, a little bit shorter days. It's older communities, or older volunteers, but then they kind of they bring their RV in, and then they just kind of live in a little community, cook together, cook on their own, but then spend time together, cook together. Like it sounds like a really neat way to participate. So then there's also year-long volunteer programs, cabinet building out in Kansas. They've started to do that Tuesday to Friday, I think, 4 days a week. If you're not local, you need to find your own lodging when you're out there, but if you have an interest in cabinet building for a couple days, you could look at the website for more information. Summer youth program, the Columbus warehouse, that's where they keep a lot of materials, they keep a lot of tools and trailers, and when there's projects when tools and trailers are going between sites, they often stop in there to get cleaned, restocked, reorganized. And then more locally, there's often Iowa or Region 3 projects that you can participate in. If you have questions, I'd be happy to answer if I know them, but mds.org is the website, and there's lots of information. And at the end, right after Signs of Hope, we're gonna watch a short video of a couple that are homeowners. If you have interest in seeing more videos of homeowners and some of the activities, the MDS website has lots of 2 to 5 minute clips of videos of those activities. Now, moving into the bulk of the sermon service part. This is from 1 John 3:16 to 18 in the NIV version. This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. If anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need, but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth. Next passage is Psalm 46, 1 through 3. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging.
Good morning. It's good to be worshiping with you this morning. Special thank you to Katrina for sharing about MDS today. What type of person are you when it comes to change? Are you an early adopter? When I think about technology, I would consider myself or place myself in the early adopter range. Somebody who wants to try something out when it first comes out. Or maybe you're a holdout. You are going to wait as long as possible, but if you have to, well, then you'll eventually change. Or maybe you're an over my dead body. Never. Not going to do it. Not that we always respond to change the same way in our lives, but we certainly have preferences, a comfort level. For some, change is like death, like a death. And so often, routine and consistency bring normalcy in ways that are not only predictable but reassuring. So we choose to do the same thing over and over again because we're creatures of habit. This repeatability gives us a sense of place and purpose, reassurance. For example, how many of us have a morning routine, even if it's a hectic one? We tend to follow a certain pattern. Get up, make coffee, take a shower, get dressed, eat breakfast, brush your teeth, head out the door. This week I saw an animated clip of two little stick figures having a conversation. The one person came in and was just like groaning and like, oh, no, don't talk to me until I've had my coffee. And the other person's like, oh, I've been up for 2 hours. I've run 2 miles. I made breakfast for the kids, and I reorganized our cupboard and made it to work early so that I could get started on the plan. The guy said, please just wait until I can have my coffee so I can really despise you. But change, the reality is that change comes to us all. Things shift, adapt, move. Whatever we have established as rock solid eventually melts away. I think about during Advent, Jackie and Karma led a couple of the children's times and shared about hiking the Grand Canyon. And those images, even though they said, right, like images don't do it justice, it's still impressive to see how a little ribbon of water can wear away rock over millions of years, right? This expansive chasm. Or Tushan also showed us an image or a picture of a cross-section of a tree, right? And the kids counted how many rings there are, and some are so fine you can't really distinguish between the years, and yet we know that there's this change, incremental change that happens. Change sometimes is imperceptible, but it is always constant, always shifting, adapting, moving. Recently, the number of natural disasters that we experience year to year have seemed to increase dramatically, if not in their frequency, then in their intensity. Once in a generation floods, fires, hurricanes, tornadoes, windstorms, earthquakes now happen annually, sometimes in the same location more than once. We see the reality of these catastrophes reflected in insurance premiums continuing to go up. Sometimes insurance companies fold or leave entire states because the cost-benefit analysis is not there. Last year, our family had to make a quick change in our insurance because the company that held our policy went belly up. I think we can all agree that there are these changes. This onslaught of storms and destructive events are They're unwelcome. We don't want them. They bother us. They're not only inconvenient, they harm people, they hurt people. And these are changes that we would all sooner just do without. And it gives me pause and makes me wonder how we will endure this ongoing pattern of destruction. So, Katrina showed some statistics for MDS. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, reported that there were 27 confirmed weather climate disaster events with losses exceeding $1 billion in the U.S. Right? 27 of them. You may remember some of them. The flooding in upper Midwest, right? We had flooding in Iowa. Hurricanes Beryl, Debbie, Francine, Helene, and Milton. There were tornado outbreaks in the central region, New Mexico wildfires, droughts and heat waves in the southeast and northwest, ongoing. And we talked about the hurricane in North Carolina, the wildfires in California. There is plenty of hard and anecdotal evidence of the strength and devastation of natural disasters in the U.S. And that doesn't even take into account all the events that happen globally. In fact, it isn't hard to become a little bit worried, concerned, or even preoccupied by the weather. Now, as a side note for this day, I don't usually handpick passages of Scripture. I hope to, usually we take a broad passage and reflect on it together. But this morning I chose two shorter snippets of Scripture that I think reflect a little bit about what we're thinking on when we consider Mennonite disaster service and disasters in general. So these two short pieces of Scriptures, I'm going to start with the second one. I just said that there are a huge number of natural disasters in the world today, even in the U.S., and there's a valid reason for us to feel a bit apprehensive, a bit concerned about their frequency, about their intensity. We may feel a little bit further removed here in the Midwest. For one, you can take the threat of hurricane off the list, right? We might receive rains from the hurricane, but we definitely aren't going to experience the direct force of a hurricane. But that doesn't necessarily relieve our anxiety levels. Wildfires, on the board it showed Michigan. I think they experienced some sort of instance of fire, but primarily wildfires aren't going to be a huge problem in Iowa. Although the consequences of wildfire smoke the last couple of summers has been disconcerting when we consider air quality. Farmers, though, here are clearly dependent on the amount of rain we receive. Not enough. The threat of drought threatens crops and livestock. Too much, and flooding threatens crops and maybe livestock as well. But in the end, Midwest, we're probably most affected by windstorms, tornadoes, and the like. And even with our predictive technology, right, we have much more up-to-date, up-to-the-minute forecasts and weather tracking. It's easy for us to feel a little bit anxious about storms, what they may do to our homes, what it might do to our livelihoods. This would have been the same, I think, for the people of God. And in the Psalms, we hear the laments and outcries of the people of God repeatedly requesting respite from tragedy and devastation. Right? The people of God cry out to God, "Help us, Lord," when there is devastation. Whether it's a storm or a ravaging empire, somebody that's committing war against the people of God, they are quick to cry out to God for mercy, for reprieve, for respite. And Psalm 46 offers us a reassurance of God's ability to hear those cries, to hear when they cry out. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way, and the mountain fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, and the mountains quake with their surging. The psalmist here offers to the people of God words of reassurance. God is our refuge. God is our strength. I think about it, each of us probably has a place of safety, a sanctuary that we go to during a storm. Maybe a lower level in the home, a basement or an inner room where we hunker down and surround ourselves with pillows and soft items. I remember in the South visiting a family from the congregation who had a mobile home, and I worried for them, right? What in the world are they going to do in a tornado? And they had maybe I talked about this before, but they had a cement bunker that they built outside. Well, it wasn't really even a bunker. It was just like a room that had like a pike that went down into the ground to sort of keep it attached to the earth. And they would all climb into this little one-room building outside of their house anytime there was a tornado. I couldn't imagine doing it. It was in the dark. It was tight. They were a large family. They all had to smash in there, cram in there, but it provided them safety. Each of us, too, has a safe place that we go to in the time of a storm. And the psalmist here states that God is, in fact, this safe place. Not that God stops all storms, but that God is a reliable place of safety and comfort, who will wade through the floodwaters with us. And because of God's presence, then, therefore, we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea. I think of it this way. It's not that I don't fear the storm. It's that I have less fear around what happens after the storm has passed. The devastation of the storm may be great, but I will choose to trust in the provision of God before, during, and after each storm in my life. But here's the rub. There are very real and devastating consequences for storms. Our homes are not designed to withstand tornadoes, right? A direct hit from a tornado, and there are no houses built that survive that. Not completely. Or even sustained 150-mile-an-hour winds, right? Or floods that enter and submerge the whole first floor. There are consequences for that, right? There's mold, there's destruction of property. Or fires that are hot enough to melt metal. And we know and understand that these types of events will happen. They have happened. They will happen. They'll continue to happen. And so it's important, I think, for us to think about this. We sometimes conflate God with the removal of all things that could harm us. And I think this is bad theology. God is not our private magician that we have on the side who protects us from every eventuality, that we keep in our back pocket and bring out anytime that we're a little bit nervous and say, God, fix it. I do not pray to God to assume that God removes every hardship from my path. I pray to God so that I may be more open to what God is already doing in the world, so that I am changed, so that my eyes are opened. Which I think brings us to our second passage of Scripture for this morning. Last week we explored a little bit from 1 John 4, where we were called to love. Love because we are loved, love because God is love, a call to love that is meaningful and powerful and vibrant and active. And 1 John 3, which comes right before it, lays out a bit more about this call to an active love, a love of action. Again, starting at 16, this is how we know that what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. If anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? How can the love of God be in that person? Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth. So Jesus actively laid down his life for us, for our benefit. Not unlike someone who places their physical body in harm's way to protect another, Jesus responded to the threat of sin by actively seeking to destroy its power. Likewise, 1 John 3 does not make this call to action a sentimental ploy. It's not sappy, right? It's not a weak or syrupy kind of call to action. It is a call to respond with the resources one has to aid in the needs of those around them. Katrina offered maybe a motto for MDS. I will also offer a motto. I don't think this is their true motto, but it's maybe we're not the first, but we're the last. We're not the first, but we're the last. I remember doing MDS work with during Katrina in Meridian. And as recruiters, you have to go door to door and you have to make sure that everything works out. You know, if the insurance adjusters haven't been there yet, you really, you can't do anything, right? You don't want to interfere with what the normal processes are. You're just making sure that anybody that falls through the cracks who maybe doesn't have the resources that they need to be able to take the next step, that you're seeking them, finding out what their needs are, and helping to bridge those difficulties. And there's a lot of rewards. MDS painstakingly finds the places where people have not responded. Or sometimes in the case of following a disaster, there were some bad apples, right, that came in and said, oh yeah, we'll fix it for you. Here, give us a down payment. We'll go get the supplies and we'll come. And they may even show up, a contractor, they might show up for a day or something. They'll start tacking on some wood or whatever, like making it look like they did their job. And then they split, take the money and run. Right? Well, MDS acts like a bridge to say, hey, wait, no, don't do that. Hold on. Find out what your insurance company can do. Find out if we can partner with people, get the resources, supplies that we need. We have volunteers who will come and do the work. And they go, and they respond, where the cameras aren't as bright, where the spotlight isn't as flashy. It's not that the organization shies away from publicity. They're not like, oh, we have to be hiding or something like that. We're not shying away from that. But their decision to help someone is based on need, not presumed worth. And they work until the job is done. They work until the job is done. Katrina mentioned the MDS Iowa, and they're in need of help right now. Calvin Yoder, Marty Roth, Katrina Miller, they're almost single-handedly keeping MDS afloat. There's a need for board participation. There's a need with organizing, helping to communicate, get the word out. For volunteers, MDS has been a stalwart when it comes to assisting those who have suffered from natural disasters. I think of Chris Rhodes. He's shared here several times. He's been transformed. His experiences have been transformative for him when he's gone and spent a week in California, in Kentucky. I'm trying to think if he's been someplace else, but yeah. And we too have been formed by MDS over the years. And so we are called to respond. Last week we mentioned the Mennonite Men, or father-son banquet. They used to raise money for MDS work, right? The people involved usually were representatives for MDS and would give updates or calls out to the congregation or the community for opportunities to serve. And I think it's important to recognize, right? MDS is not the only organization in the world doing good following a natural disaster. There are lots of organizations, but they are responding to the challenge that 1 John offers us. Let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth. They are responding to these needs, and we too are invited to respond to the needs of those around us. Friends, my hope is that we hear this message, reminding ourselves that we find refuge when we turn to God, and that when we see need around us, like this passage calls us to, we must respond to that challenge, show up for one another until the job is done. May it be so.
811, Use Us, God. Warren led this song in November or December, and I thought it was the right one for this morning. Please stand if you are able, in body or in spirit, as we sing number 811, Use Us, God.
Use our eyes, Jesus Christ, open, see your love, give us see the where we are. Use us, God, as we go. Let us represent your love, even though we're far from perfect. Use us as we go. Bless our ears, help us hear cries of those who doubt and fear. Give us time to hear their stories. Let us be yours ears. Use us, God, as we go. Let us represent your love, even though we're far from perfect. Use us as we go. Bless our hands, God of all. May they carry out your law. May they reach to all our neighbors, reach to them in love. Use us, God, as we go. Let us represent your love, even though we're far from perfect. Use us as we go.
You're not alone, I'm with you, I'm lonely too. What's that song? Can't be sung by two. A broken home, a broken heart, isolated and afraid. Open up, this is a ray. I wanna get it through to you. You're not alone. You're not alone. Every night I stand in your place. Every tear on every face tastes the same. A broken dream, a broken isolated and afraid. Open up, this is a ray. I'm gonna get it through to you. You're not alone. An open hand, an open heart. There's no need to be afraid. Open up, this is a ray. I wanna get it through to you. You're not alone. I wanna get it through to you. You're not alone. I'm gonna get it through to you. You're not alone.
Just before 6:30, 6:15 in the morning, I noticed a spot fire right over here in the corner where the road makes a 90-degree turn on the other side of the road. I go to set up the water pump, and an oak tree in the high winds had blown over, blocking the path and blocking where I need to set up the water pump. It's like, God, we're staying and fighting the fire. Calm, boys, not this time.
And it got so black so fast that I literally couldn't see my way out of the house.
So we got around the corner about a mile from here, further from the fire, and it had burned through, and it's all ash. Let's go, well, we can pull in there.
So I parked, and then we went over and sat on the bank, and we waited.
With a lot of other people waiting for loved ones to get out. Everybody that was in the immediate group, their loved one came out, but we lost 9 people up here, 4 of which been here to eat. Yeah, it's like...
So we put it in God's hands. We came back out and we sat down and we said, hey, you know, we don't have enough to rebuild. We don't have enough to rebuild even if we got a loan. So we're just going to put this in God's hand. We're going to help the community get back on their feet. If we get a home, great. If we don't, great. We'll sell and we'll go somewhere else. We lost so much green in the trees. I want a greenhouse.
And thank God for the Mennonites and so many other people. Yeah, but they're just awesome people doing awesome things all through this.
Isn't that gorgeous? We put everything that we had gotten into doing this, and it has just went from little, from before the fire, to it's just amazing. I mean, we've got a storage barn back here full, we've got this. We're also now a distribution center for emergencies beyond just daily need. On my busiest day, we've had about 35 people. Those 30 are taking care of an average of 90 people. Why do we stay? Because we've got a purpose. Christ is the perfect example. I wanted to follow in his footsteps. He had compassion, he fed them. He had compassion, he said clothe them. He said love them. So that's what we do and why we started doing it.
Thank you.
We're almost done, love.
Please stand in body or in spirit and join me in singing our sending song, 830, Go My Children, 830.
picks up where she
Now receive this benediction blessing from MDS materials. May the Christ who walks on wounded feet walk with you on the road. May the Christ who serves with wounded hands stretch out your hands to serve. May the Christ who loves with a wounded heart open your hearts to love. May you see the face of Christ in everyone you meet, and may everyone you meet see the face of Christ in you. Go in peace.